Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Kelly and Company. 3 shows left, including this one. I know I keep saying it. You know, when you're wrapping something up, you tend to default to those kinds of summations, I guess. All right. Let's get to the normal standard stuff we do on the show. At this point on the program, we're kicking off the show with Artist Corner today. Visiting percussionist and educator Jeff Stewart, who brings decades of experience using drumming to build connections, confidence, and community. Also on the show, Forbes named Microsoft, Nike, and 97 other companies to its first Accessibility 100 list. We talk about who made the list and why does this actually matter with Matisse Hammel-Nelis shortly. And let's visit with Kelly and Company fan favorites, the pair we called Bill and Margrett, for a classic minute, who also brought us the buzz a little later on. Buzz, remember that? Off we go, buzzing into today's shows.
This is Kelly and Company.
Want to remind you, please follow me on Twitter at AMI Kelly Mac. Always up for the conversation. Joining me on the program today, of course, Nazreen Abdul-Majid. Hello, Nazreen.
Hi. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, midweek, and the last time we can say, okay, what's your favorite day of the week? What's the worst day? Oh, we're over the hump now. People can now celebrate. No more of that garbage. Yeah.
How you feeling?
So let's do it.
3 more shows, eh?
Good. Yeah, and of course it's the conversations you have, like the one we're going to have later with Bill and Margrett. It's the, hey, thanks a lot for coming on our show and being with us kinds of conversations like we'll have with Matisse in a bit. It's tough. It's also really rewarding when you look back and people remind you of, hey, man, that's a good run. That's a good run.
Reminiscing.
I mean, I mean, sure, you could do it longer and would want to. Who wouldn't? With what we get to do, that's for sure. But everything has its shelf life, its time, and we have so many different things that are in store ahead at AMI Audio. And by the way, we will be talking about some of that as we go through the remainder of the week, giving an idea for us anyway, the team, and that what's coming next and some other announcements. But in the meanwhile, it's about celebrating the live show era and something cool that we always had in our historical, when you think back, our historical ranks of content on the show, and something that was right high up there was Artist Corner, Nazreen.
Jeff Stewart doesn't start with instructions. He leads with a beat, letting people engage on their own terms. For years, he's been leading drum circles with students, adults with developmental disabilities, people in recovery, and residents of group homes. No prior experience, no pressure, just rhythm, presence, and a space where everyone feels like they belong. We're going to talk to Jeff about inclusion and drumming as advocacy, but first, let's let him set the tone a little more. First of all, thank you for starting us off that way with your lovely playing. And you've said that you don't begin your sessions with instruction. Why is that important in the communities you work with?
Well, you know what? The places I work, it's a social gathering. You're bringing people together. And the greatest thing, just from my reflections in all the years I've been doing this and talking to other facilitators like myself across the world, is that that it releases a lot of stress and anxiety, and socially you connect in a different way, in a non-verbal way, through playing an instrument. So, and the key thing with the populations I work with is that they don't feel isolated in dealing with what their special needs is.
You've said that there's no wrong way to play a drum. It's one of those things that helps people engage with your work, because so many are just worried about getting it wrong that they don't even try. Do you think that there's a parallel between your approach and effective advocacy and inclusion?
Yeah, well, I always tell people right off at the top, not to worry. Again, there's no such thing as playing a wrong note. You just got to trust your gut and play and listen to what others are playing. By listening to others, will help make things easier for you because you can connect with what others are playing, right? It's amazing when you get a group of people that are struggling and get them to socially connect through playing percussion-based instruments. So to me, I think that's the key thing, and it is very healthy. It does release any anxiety you might have or stress. Christine Stevens from Upbeat Drums, she was a mentor for me for a while. I'm not sure if you remember that awful Columbine high school shooting in New York way back in the day. Well, she heard what the teenagers were all going through. So she thought, you know what? She packed up her drums and she went to Columbine High School and she did drumming with the young people at the school to help them deal with their frustration, anxiety, and stress. So people are going into hospitals or senior homes, care centers to do music. She's done a lot of that too, going into these places to help with the, people's well-being, help them feel better through music. It's pretty amazing what you could do with any group of people.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting you say that, Jeff, because that's what I've always noticed, that you use anything for a drum, people play it, they seem more comfortable, more forgiving of what they consider they don't know or their lack of, I'm not musical, but anyone drums on something without any conscience or fear of being, hey, what are you doing? You're terrible at that. It always gives you a really good feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just hitting something or the lack of concern. It's not like you're saying, now sit down at that piano and play me some notes. Huh?
it's an outlet, right? Drumming's an outlet.
Yeah.
Even people that say to me, hey, Jeff, man, I have no sense of rhythm at all. And I would tell them, I'm going to prove you wrong very quickly. That's my goal in life, is to prove these people that don't think they have a sense of rhythm. Well, we're born with a heartbeat. We're surrounded by it.
Yeah. So when we talk about the group, Jeff, in it at any time, what kinds of changes do you notice once the group locks into rhythm? I mean, I'd imagine there's a distinct shift beyond the smiling, the laughing, and settling in like that.
Yeah. I have to say one word that I see a lot is the people I'm working with to develop better confidence and for themselves to play, to participate with others. There's this one young guy, Luke, at one place I go to. He's an amazing young person, and I always make sure I give him the first drum that I hand out, because I'll hand him a drum, and as I'm handing out all the other instruments, he grabs the drum and he just starts playing a really nice groove, and everyone just joins in. I don't have to guide it, he guides it, and that's confidence. I love to see that, and I like doing different things like that too. I'll get everyone to start something, basically featuring each individual in a group of people that you're working with. So yeah, I have to say confidence, just seeing your spirits lift.
You've worked with a lot of different populations, kids, adults with disabilities, even people in recovery. What is it about drumming that makes it such a ubiquitous tool for inclusion and wellness?
Well, first off, it's easy to get their hands onto it and instantly get a nice sound from it, instantly. And that's an important thing. When I was a school teacher, I incorporated world drumming as part of my music curriculum, just open their eyes and ears to the sounds of instruments from all cultures. That's the greatest thing, how easy it is to get the instruments out to everyone in a quick manner and get everyone playing together.
All right, let's do it. Let's bring in some more sound, because you've got quite the collection of drums right there with you. Show us a few of your favorite drums and even tell us where they come from.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to start with shakers. Shakers are great. There's all kinds of different shakers. Like, everyone knows that the maraca, right? Here's one maraca.
Yeah.
And then we have other shakers, like this one. This is really cool. It's I think they call this the surfer shaker. There's a little hole on one end, and when you take your thumb on and off, it changes the pitch.
Oh.
drums.
I love that.
Yeah.
And there's something in changing the sound, messing around, or just that warmth.
Yeah. Well, I highly recommend these drums, and they can be used in all kinds of environments. These are called frame drums, and every culture has a frame drum. Like the native drum, they call it odewe gun, and then you go to Brazil, they call it the tambourine, and then when you go to the Middle East, they call it the tar, and then Ireland, they have frame drums there. Here's a frame drum here. I have 5 different sizes right here. And when you hand them out to everyone to play, they hear the low to the high pitch and hear how it all works together. So when they come with these cool mallets, on every drum you can get 3 major sounds. Playing in the middle, you get the lower bass sound. And then when you move towards the edge, you get a higher pitch. You can hear the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Or an accented one. You go like that to accent. And there's another sound too. So you can do a variety of different sound, rhythm kind of things. And then the next thing I want to show you are the boom markers. Here we got the red. What's cool about these, you're connecting color with sound. And that's a great thing in all our populations, children to adults. And this has been a big thing. I think these came out about 15, 20 years ago, boom markers.
Right.
They're plastic tubes, easy to hold. This is the color red, and this is the note C. So all the red boom markers are the note C, and they're all the same size, like this. So that is C. Then we're going to go from red to orange, which is D. And we're going to go from
very different.
D, orange, to yellow, which is E. And then from there, we're skipping out. This is a pentatonic scale, 5 notes. G, which is green. Then we got A, which is purple. So they're easy to play. They're fun to play.
And Jeff, are they all different sizes, like each one of them, or are they relatively close in size?
No, they're all different sizes. C is like,
okay, that's what I thought by the sound, obviously,
C
but I thought
long. Then D gets a little bit smaller. Yellow, E. Then there is a F. They each get smaller. So from low to high.
And they look like what I would describe them as pool noodles. Am I describing it right? They're like cylinder shaped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah,
wow.
I highly suggest.
I love the range of sounds. Yeah.
To that want to explore doing this kind of work, to incorporate found sounds during during COVID period. I have a group of people that I drum with, and as you know, with COVID, we're all kind of isolated at our own homes, right? So I said, okay, here's your homework, everyone. I want you to find some kind of found percussion sound, and I'm going to video something, and I'm going to email it to each of you, and I want you to do a video of yourself playing their found sound, and then send it back to me, and I put it all together. All of us, like there was 12
fun.
That's a great idea.
Fun.
Like so many of those singing ones that people were doing.
Different way to socialize, right? Very different way, but we needed that then. So with COVID, tough times. So
did you have health issues, Jeff, that you were mentioning earlier that kind of helped you, as it does with so many people through through your times? Can you just mention briefly a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, sure. I've been through a lot health-wise. I'm very fortunate. I did have a kidney transplant, and I had it for 12 years, and I was very thankful to have that. But I got pneumonia, and it did my kidney, and it burnt a hole through the kidney. So I had to go back on dialysis, and I've been doing that ever since. I started 2013, and I go to the hospital 3 to 4 times a week for my dialysis treatment. So it's just part of life and makes you look at things a lot differently. I've been through some other stuff too, causes of dialysis when you're on a long time. So I had to relearn how to play the drums all over again 3 years ago because I had a fusion they had to do on my spine, upper spine. So 3.5 years ago, I couldn't even hold a spoon. So I've come a long way. But how I looked upon all that stuff is a journey in life. And for me, it's important to work hard to move forward in this journey to, well, in that situation, relearn how to play the drums all over again. So, and I did YouTube videos through my whole journey just to share with others because I thought, how can I make this even more interesting? I thought, I'll do YouTube videos to show how I get from point A to point B with regards to relearning how to play the drums all over again. So
nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that.
And how encouraging. Wow.
Yeah.
It's important to move forward, right? It's very important to focus your love and happiness with your family that surround you and your friends too. Not get so caught up with like Dallas is not an easy thing, but I think it's so important to keep the chin up and keep working very hard to move forward. I always tell people not to give up what your hobbies, your interests are, whatever your passion is. You got to keep doing that, and that's what I love about AMI television. I've been watching a lot of it. The stories, you know, I'm right with everyone with how they're experiencing their life, staying positive and keep doing what their passions are. So thankful to watch that. So
Absolutely.
Stories,
Before we wrap, Jeff,
yeah.
we'd love to have you jam with us again. Spoil us with a little more, if you would. What will you play us out with what drum?
Yeah, let's see. I'm using 2 boom whackers. Red is C and G is green.
That was Jeff Stewart, drummer, educator, and author, sharing his powerful approach to inclusion and rhythm. You can find his book, Spirit of World Drumming and Rhythmic Kinesthetics, on Amazon and Kindle. And if you're in Northern Ontario this summer, don't miss his live community drum circle at the Northern Lights Festival Boreal in Sudbury, July 5th at the Family Stage.
Absolutely tremendous. Drumming for me has always been something. And again, as we talked about, I don't feel as insecure. Now, you give me a couple of things to do with drums, like boom, 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 boom. I'm good. You sit there and say, do boom, 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 boom. Maybe I might make it that far, but much more than that, it's a stretch. And I don't know why, because everybody gets so excited to drum, sitting in a drumming circle and just having fun with it and no pressure.
Fun.
And I think that was so important on the mental health part.
Yeah, and you know what I find interesting, how music in general, everybody finds it so therapeutic, whether it's a guitar, a drum, whatever it may be. People find it a therapeutic type of therapy that just helps, you know, their anxiety, their stress, whatever it may be. It's so soothing to them. So whether you find drumming, I mean, look at Jeff Stewart right now. Like, there's no pressure there for him. There was no prior experience, and yet he found this to be very helpful to him, and he started sharing that with other people and helping other people soothe them, right?
Yeah.
So it's so fun. It's so cool how, like, every instrument people would find therapeutic.
I did a music therapy piece for AMI Audio years ago, and it was really a lot of fun. And it was, of course, used for seniors and people in a nursing home, and just people with different situations of health. And it was amazing, those who picked up on stuff, especially those who had Alzheimer's, the stuff from the past that they couldn't remember certain areas of the past, music, they could touch upon. They could remember. You could play something and they had it. You as a DJ, when you think about what it does for you as a DJ, mental health wise, the certain songs, the certain moments, and again, I know you're working as opposed to being a DJ and enjoying your beats and so on, but the observations that you must have too, looking around, the people on the floor, some people the dancing is what does it for them. For some people the slower, some people it's totally those beats, the bass going through someone, or those who want to sing. There are such a variety of those things that are good for the mental health, but each one of us, we're individual.
That's exactly it. Just finding the right song, finding the right remix, transitioning to a different song. Watching the dance floor is very therapeutic to me, especially when I find people all hyped up and they're just dancing to the beat. You know, they're feeling it, they're vibing it. It does get stressful when I see somebody not vibing with the song, right? And that gets me tense. That, you know, stresses me out for sure. But right when I hit a song that, you know, I watch everybody just bopping to it, that I found therapeutic for sure.
Yeah, tremendous. I love these conversations. We're going to miss them the most, ladies and gentlemen. Always so much that we can find from our guests and contributors to the show that are just amazing, Nisreen.
Yes. Forbes recently released its first ever Accessibility 100 list, spotlighting 100 of the most impactful organizations and individuals innovating in accessibility. The inaugural list, published on June 17th, 2025, includes a diverse mix of big tech, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and mission-driven businesses. Matisse Hammel-Nelis is here with the scoop. What is the purpose of this list, Matisse?
So the purpose of this list, also, hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be back. So the purpose of this list is to really start to showcase the importance of these disability and innovators and impactful makers in the accessibility space. It's the first time we've ever seen a list like this come out, and it really shows the impact that inventions and innovative thinking to help those with disabilities has gone far beyond just those with disabilities. Right? Thinking about going back to the, if you use a curb cut or a sloped curb, initially people thought it was just for those who were wheelchair users, but think of a mother with a stroller, that's going to help there. Or watching videos with closed captions or the electric toothbrush, right? All of this is thanks to disability research and development. And so it's giving sort of that, recognition for the incredible work that is being done overall. And so this list of 100 businesses, individuals is just absolutely amazing. And it's definitely a starting point. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen next year with the new list.
It's really crazy when you think about how many innovations that the disability community pushes and everyone benefits from, but those people out there, well, I don't have a disability, so this is for them, not for me. But yet as they're using the ramp, or as they're using the automatic door, or so many of the different things you're talking about, they use every single day, they have no idea. Well, that became because someone said, I need support doing this. So it's phenomenal. Can we talk about the companies? Who were the notable picks that you want to draw some attention to?
For sure. I'm going to stick with our Canadian friends who made the list. We have 6 of them. So the first one is Access Now under the Mobility Travel Impact area. The next is All Access Life under the Influencer and Advocacy area. Then we have Fable under Software, Humanware under Products, the Kite Research Institute under Money, Media, and More category, and finally Trexo Robotics under Products. It's nice to see Canadian recognition on this list, so that's why I wanted to highlight those in particular, because go Canada. We're on that Forbes list.
I love that. Do you think this is an impactful move, though?
I think it's a good starting point, but there's definitely more that can be done in terms of the diversity, if you will, on that actual list. So really including more leaders with disabilities on that list, queer disabled leaders, Black, Brown, Indigenous disabled leaders, neurodivergent leaders, people with disabilities from the global South. It was very North American heavy when we looked at the list overall. And also, looking at a list that is a bit more, having a list, or I should say, or a category that is more grassroots based, because a lot of organizations and nonprofits are doing incredible things in the space of accessibility and bridging that gap that we're seeing in society that don't get the recognition they deserve on this list. But if we expanded it and created a specific list or a category that focused on that, then it would be more diverse in terms of the leadership and the amazing work that's being done out there around accessibility and disability space.
It interests me because we look at a list, when I hear of a list being made, who has the most to gain from being on this list? I don't mean the attention, but when you think of their business, if you think big tech, well, okay, we in the community love that because so much of us love our tech. But when you look at not-for-profits, when you look at entrepreneurs, people who you might say don't have the money, they're maybe doing it because their target is a community that needs accessibility, and then you stop and say, okay, mission driven as well. Are they more? Yeah. Who's going to be more represented on this list because they have to? Who would love to be on this list if they had the financial means and the time to do it? Maybe entrepreneurs, less of them because they're a little more on their own or they're startups. What do you feel? I mean, far and away, is big tech the one that you would say is doing this? I mean, your list was so many wonderful accessibility Canadian companies that you pointed out.
Yeah, so the list itself was broken down into these categories: communication, education, employment and workplace, entertainment and arts, influencer and advocacy, law and government, mobility, products, software, sports and recreation, and then there was an others category for those who didn't necessarily fall in line with the other categories, right. Which it's a starting point, but for those, like you were saying, those groups or individuals who are doing it because it's the right thing to do, and maybe they don't have the big budget behind them to get out there and be promoted, that's where the likes of social media advocacy come into play, where let's get the voices out there, let's get people understanding and knowing who these individuals and organizations are, so that it builds up that grassroots momentum and acknowledgement of who they are and what they're doing. And in future, hopefully see them on this list as well, without having those big budgets like an Apple or a Google has, which also made the list.
I know it's early days, but who would be paying attention to this Ford list?
I would like to say it's really any organization or company that is looking to embrace accessibility. I think this is a great opportunity to sort of get in at the ground floor, if you will, to understand who's out there doing the work that they may need to do internally themselves. And who can be those partners or allies or, whatever the case may be, to help get them to where they need to be on their accessibility journey and their diversity journey when it comes to embracing individuals with disabilities in their workplace. But also, in general, just for the disability and accessibility community overall, it's really cool to finally see a list like this in Forbes, of all places, a magazine that is so reputable and so well known from the business marketing perspective and the business world, to see a list like this and them putting a focus on the importance of accessibility. And the importance of what these businesses and companies are doing is such a big shift in the right direction, especially given the climate around DEI and accessibility stateside. This is sort of Forbes magazine saying, we're doubling down, we're going to continue focus on this, and we're going to make a nice first ever 100 list to get us started with that.
I just love how it showed up. The first list, the idea there, somebody saying, we need to do this, and Forbes, I do realize I called you Ford off the top of my question there, my apologies. I think that's so important because, again, somebody is sitting there saying, hey, we need to do this, and we're seeing that more and more, Matisse.
Yeah, it's true. And, there's a line in the Accessibility 100 from Marcy Roth, the executive director of the World Institute on Disability, where she says, we're leaving money on the table because we're only marketing to 3 out of 4 people. Right. And so when we're thinking about Forbes being a business magazine at the end of the day, it is highlighting these are the avenues and areas that you can implement accessibility into your practices, so that you're actually now going to be marketing to 4 out of 4 people versus just that 3 out of 4 people, and leaving that money on the table. Show with impact and building that into your natural culture of your organization and business, and you'll go far.
Do you feel like Forbes is the right entity to have started something like this?
That's a great question. I think, I think it's an interesting one because they've been focusing a lot more on disability, accessibility, DEI overall in the articles they've been publishing over the years. So I think it was a natural progression for them to say, yes, we're going to create this type of list. But it would have been really cool if someone like the Wall Street Journal had done it. Right, who's very, very business focused, and if you're in business, you're probably reading their articles and grabbing their magazines, but they don't talk as much about this. So for Forbes, it seems like a natural progression. But I would love to see these types of lists become more mainstream, but looking at different categories again, not just focus on the big tech, but also those grassroots organizations and individuals who are making incredible impact in accessibility and the disability space.
In your mind, what's that do for these guys already? Just, I mean, seeing some of these companies that for so many years I think of as manufacturers of content, things for the disabled community, people outside of that community would know nothing. But yet, seeing this in Forbes, getting that moment to stop and say, who are these people? Let me go online and see what they, wow. I know this is the tip of the iceberg, and maybe this is where Wall Street Journal and them look over and say, oh, you did that list? So what's this do for those other companies that we know and we're so familiar, with out there and hear their names due to the fact that we're in that community and so many people are and will be?
I feel like it adds a bit of legitimacy in the outside space. So what I mean by that is those who aren't in the disability and accessibility space are now going to learn about them and get this new attention into, okay, this is interesting. What is this about? How can I use their tools, their products, their software, their knowledge, their advocacy work to implement it into my business and organization? It gives them sort of a new touch point to get into the accessibility space and build on their accessibility journey, which they should already be on. But if they're not, again, it's that sort of easing into, okay, who can I follow? What should I be doing? What can I learn? For the big the big companies and organizations like the Apple and the Google, it's just another feather in their cap, if you will, in terms of, we're doing really cool stuff. But for those other organizations, businesses, and individuals who are on this list, I think of LinkedIn was on here for Jensen Asuncion, and so also Canadian, so hey, but he works through LinkedIn. He was given the LinkedIn accreditation there. It provides a highlight and understanding that there are people working on platforms like LinkedIn who are trying to make it a more accessible space overall. So putting names to products and to services and to advocacy and initiatives that are happening, it just sort of helps build the other organizations and companies up within the general public. And for those who are already the bigwigs, the Apples, the Googles, it's just sort of solidifying what they're already doing and saying, that's why we're on the list, because we're on the right track and we've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Matisse, were there any surprises for you, people or organizations you didn't see included on that list?
I think when it came to the celebrity / influencer one, I was expecting a bit more Canadian representation. To be honest with you, we have some incredible accessibility and disability advocates who are doing absolutely remarkable and incredible things on social and promoting accessibility, disability, their lived experience in a way that is engaging. It's fun. It's not just, oh, woe is me, which is sort of the narrative you hear come out of a lot of organizations when it comes to disability and accessibility, right? They're changing that landscape and that shift. So I was hoping to see a bit more of those individuals on there. And they happen to be Canadians. So, again, trying to rep for Canada there. But overall, given that it was the first time making this list and the individuals who were part of the methodology and sort of the expert panel, if you will, the quote unquote expert panel, it's a good starting point. But at the same time, again, this is the first year. I'm hoping that next year it expands even more. And I think limiting it to 100 might have been a a tall task, because each of the categories could have 50 individuals that really are making that impact and making that change for what it is to have a disability or what it is in the accessibility space that they are improving. Mm-hmm. So I think cutting it down to 100, but then having so many categories doesn't do it justice, is my sort of thought. I would think it's a list of 100, but it's 100 for each category, if that makes sense. And that overall is the accessibility 100 list.
And it's hard for us because we're excited to get the word out. We're excited to see these companies' names on a list, and we can say, yeah, but what about? But if we did that with any other list, we're going to say the same thing. But I definitely understand the categories. Did it, in your opinion, skew with a panel like that? More American, more European, did you feel? Or did they seem to at least try to give us a worldwide scatter?
I found it, going through the list, to be more North American heavy, more American based, if you will. The Global South was very much, the Global South was very much ignored on this list. So again, maybe it's because of that lack of knowledge or lack of promotion from these entities and individuals and organizations, to sort of have their name be found and be like, oh, they're doing incredible things. Let's, consider them for the list. I think that was sort of a disservice as well. Given that Forbes is read globally, it should have had a more global perspective on that list. And again, it goes back to, we are only featuring literally 100 companies or organizations or individuals on this list. And even then, the categories had the other category because they didn't know where to categorize those individuals, but they wanted to provide an outlet to say they're doing great things. So I think it comes down to the knowledge of other organizations and individuals outside of the Northern Hemisphere, but also, maybe it's just that limitation of 100 overall, spanning so many categories, does a disservice as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because I always think some companies throughout the world fly under the radar simply because that's just what they do. Accessibility has been part of what they do, or it's part of their product line, and it's not even steps out there because they don't make a big deal of it. It's just natural for them. To them, it's logical for them to create products that serve different people. And I think sometimes we don't see it because we're so happy. Hey, said company not too far from me has something I can buy at this price, which is cheaper. So we're ready to, yay! Versus said company across the world that's been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah. It's true. And I think we should have an outlet or provide an outlet for all these organizations who just have it naturally embedded in what they do, in their culture, in their product line, in their software, whatever the case may be, within accessibility and disability space. They should be, shouted from the rooftops and said, look at the amazing work they're doing. And like I said, this list is definitely a great starting point, and I'm looking to see how it expands or evolves for the next year's list, as I'm hopeful there will be a next year's list, as this is just year one. And the feedback and everything that I'm seeing online towards it has been positive, but people have also flagged the lack of overall diversity on that list. So I'm looking to see how that grows or changes over the next list next year.
Okay.
I'm curious of how it's going to influence accessibility innovation in the future. As you said, there's a list next year. So I'm curious of how that's going to grow from just this list alone. But this has been great.
Agreed. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I totally agree because Sorry. I was just going to say, I totally agree because everybody wants to be on a Forbes list, whatever it is. So seeing that, how they're going to elevate themselves on accessibility will be very, very cool to see.
Yeah, it really will. This is our last chat with you. Any final word that you have pertaining the theme we've had with our monthly chats with you?
First and foremost, just thank you for the opportunity. And I think if anybody can come away with anything from any of my conversations with you, it would be progress over perfection when it comes to accessibility. We're going to make mistakes and we learn from them. And that's okay. That's the best way to learn. That's how I got started in my career in the accessibility space. And, always ask questions because questions lead to answers and it'll help you become better at what you do while considering accessibility always.
For sure.
Matisse Hammel-Nelis has been joining us monthly on the show with Access Talks. We've covered mental health, invisible disabilities, inclusive socializing, and so much more. Matisse, thank you for your time and your advocacy work in this field. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much.
Nizzy.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Shackleton and Margaret
Yes.
Weldon. Do those names sound familiar to you?
A little bit, bringing me back to my intern days, that's for sure.
Okay, so we'll go back, way back in the way
They're the
back
OGs,
machine.
by the way.
Yes,
Yep.
I would say so. Bill's an AMI old timer who we've roped into everything at the company, from audio editing to contributions on the show. And Margaret Weldon, well, she had her iconic In the Know segments with interviews from community guests and really coverage from so many community guests, community topics. She covered it all. There was an era where these two folks gathered their materials and joined us together on the show as well, like they're doing right now. Welcome back, Bill. Welcome back, Mags.
Hello.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Here.
Nice to have you guys from your homes joining us on the program, coming back. So I'm going to dive into it as we've been going back and remembering the live show era on AMI audio and people's different roles, the different things they thought and felt. Bill, I'll start with you. How did you and Mags get paired to do a segment which later would end up with you each doing your own on our show?
Well, we started out with Donna Johnhan, as you know, and I started out with her. And then Margaret came on scene, and Margaret and I started working together within the Know, I guess it was. And then
Actually, it was called How It's Done. It was called How It's Done. That's what our segment was called. The segment with you and I, Bill. How It's Done.
All right. Well, we did that for a number of years, and then I gradually switched over to the AMI, the TV side, and then we started working on our own separate segments.
And for you, Bill, you were not a person, like you started, as I mentioned, as a technical producer. And I remember starting to do interviews and things like that. And hey, Billy, would you ever be interested in that? No. Wasn't your thing at all. And as you started doing the buzz and coming up with a unique angle, I have to say, Billy, it was so inviting and so curious. So thank you, because you took on a challenge in all your years at the company that I know myself, and I'm sure many others would say, I never never thought Bill could do that. How did you feel about that?
I just viewed it as a learning curve. And, when I started with the buzz, it's been going on for many, many years, but I like the articles. I like presenting the articles. And I know some of them were really funny. Some of them were a bit of a flop. But I tried to pick out articles that were interesting for the audience, and that's what I did. That's basically, that's
awesome.
How I did. I just looked up all the research. I looked up all the newspapers, and I just went from there.
Awesome. Margaret, this was out of your wheelhouse. I know that, but you not only taught yourself how to build your segment, but you also became a backup host for Kelly and Company. How was that?
Well, it was very overwhelming. It wasn't something I thought I would ever be doing. But what happened was Kelly came to me and said, "I'm going to be doing this new radio show," and I think, and he said, Bill Shackleton, who has been there for many years, was going to be doing a segment, and he needs help to do the research. And we think that the two of you should do the segment together. I had never met Bill at this point. And I said, "Well, what do we do it on?" Kelly went, "I don't care. just whatever you can think of." And that's where we started. And then as time went on, they wanted to have substitute hosts in case Kelly and Ramya were away. And then Kelly said to me, would you consider becoming a substitute co-host? And by the way, there's a course called Connect for Life, and we think you should take that as well. And that showed me things like editing and basically how to put a segment together and things like that. So it's been a really good ride. I think if I hadn't had these opportunities, I wouldn't have gotten to do certain things like find out what goes on behind the scenes of the Toronto Santa Claus Parade, or even, things like that, or even just getting out into the community and getting the guests. That was pretty exciting. So, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of allowed you to do and pick things that you were interested in and could morph into a topic that made us all interested.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes it would just be people who would want to know about different things, or, sometimes topics would come up from the news and, well, why is it this way and how come it's not that way? So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that if you were curious, wondered how, especially a person in our community, disability community, or just that general public, as we found doing the show, people were often, we might have thought, well, a blind person should know about this. Well, the truth be known, most people should know about some of the things that we brought. And we found a lot more people were interested than we ever found. Bill, I don't think I'm telling tales. I mean, you've retired, you've left the company, you had some health challenges, which took you away from working with us on the show, doing the buzz. So glad to see you. And on the other side of those health challenges, what kinds of things are you doing in retirement?
I'm reading my Audible books, and I'm playing on the computer, and this and that type of thing. Using the internet, surfing the.
Are you bored?
Yeah, I'm a little bit to times when it is boring, and sometimes when it's not. And
I still think you should.
The abilities.
And you're what? Oh, yes. Well,
and
I'll tell.
That's big now for me. That's like an hour and a half, 3 days a week. So it gets me out.
That's great. And of course, you can't complain about the fitness. I went there to MC an event there, and a lot of that was because, hey, I know a lot about the great place, but Billy is there working out and stuff like that, and it was just such a really cool thing. And Billy, I know that's a lot of dealing with the health concerns and filling your time in, because so many people say, well, when I retire, what the heck do I do with myself? I still think you should come back and be an apprentice at AMI, but well, that's just my opinion.
That would be pretty cool.
Yes.
Bill, let's start with you. What is your favorite memory of the show?
Well, my favorite memory is, Meg, what did we record? What did we do that was interesting? A couple of segments we did. The one that I really liked was the Christmas train that we did.
Yes. I remember you got pretty excited about it when I brought the information in, and you said, "Oh my goodness, this is for me," and I think we were both pretty excited. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What was so exciting, guys? I mean, I love, again, we got to learn about things you were interested in, but for each of you, was it because you like trains, the holiday season? Mags, what was it for you?
For me, it was a bit of everything. See, I really do love trains. I love the sound of them. One of my biggest dreams is actually to find a way to get on and figure out how to ride in the cab of a train, one of these days. But it was just the idea of the holiday train and just something unique. And it didn't really focus on anything but fun, like it was fun. It was positive. It was light. People laughed at it. And so for Bill and I would say that particular segment, actually, I did a couple of segments on the holiday train, and I must say, yes, that does rate at the top of my favorite list.
Yeah. Okay. So you would put that at the top of yours. Billy's got that up there. Anything else, guys, that you want to point to either as a favorite or maybe not so favorite, Bill?
One of the ones that I really liked. Remember the one about the bear that ate 3 or 4 or 5 dozen donuts and
Well, we were talking about the fact that suddenly I think we were doing it with our veterinarian, right, Niz, where we were discussing the fact that with Danielle Johnkind that seemed to become a fad, showing all sorts of pictures of animals breaking into places, primarily bears, eating foods. I think we went back to the chocolate bar discussion with her. Oh man, and because the whole world's being filmed, so you guys enjoyed that.
Yeah, the other one that I really liked, remember the one I did when the F word was on a gentleman's tombstone? I don't know if you
yes. I do remember that in the cemetery, and people were not pleased that he had it.
No, they weren't. Oh, but it was like, that's the way it was. Like, that's the way the family thought of this guy. And they put it on the tombstone.
Yeah. And Bill, is it because, as we always talk about the great discussions that come from that stuff, because we all say, what the heck would someone do that for? That's blasphemy. You know, whatever you want to say how about the person, but we all have our certain things. I sit here and mock you and joke around imitating you as what I consider the highest form of flattery, where others might say, you know, that's really not nice. And I think that that's one of the things we discovered doing the show, Nisreen, and you I'm sure have discovered it over the time you've been doing this.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many factors to consider. Like, there's so many memories to look at that I would highlight as a favorite, but it wouldn't be a favorite because it's more than one. Yeah,
and that's the thing. But I mean, people saying, hey, you know, there's times that it's been great to kind of change our mind about something. Because I think right off the bat, when Billy brought this thing, we all said, whoa, that is wrong. Why would you put the F-bomb on? But it's knowing the person. It's the things that you mean in good nature. And I know a lot of time we get trying to be publicly non-offensive, as you should be. But there are also those relationships that people have with people that we can't question. When it came to the tech part of things for both of you, Margrett, how did you manage when we said, okay, no more coming into the studio, you got to do things at home? That was more of a challenge.
Ooh.
It was more of a challenge, but I thankfully had, I used to live in a house. I've relocated to a condo now, but I thankfully had a tenant in my home, Dave Alverson, who's actually here today, who was very technically inclined. And was able to help me out. But I think I remember doing the show as a substitute co-host. And I remember on the first day we were on, and all of a sudden I hear this, and the power had gone. Like the power had just gone. Yeah, because of the hydro. And what it was, somebody was upset because of COVID, they were protesting it, and they chopped, like, I don't know, they did something to a hydro pole. I forget what it was. They did something to a hydro pole or something. And anyways, it did affect hydro and everything like that. Yeah. And so that, but I mean, the one thing the COVID and the show did is made me become more technical savvy, because I used to be very afraid of technology.
Yes.
I still find it daunting, but not as daunting. So, yeah.
Yeah, it allowed you to get out of your comfort zone for sure. I can relate to that, Margrett. I mean, just having all of that, you know, with no support from the office, or like minimal support, you know, everything has to be done online. It was a scary transition for all of us, I think. What do you think, Bill?
I certainly agree. The thing that I found most interesting is the way the show is put together and what happens behind the scenes, and the fact that you never know what can happen. I mean, every day is something could go wrong, something, you know, and what went right, what went wrong. So you just never knew, you know.
Yeah.
But
well, and Billy, you come from the days where just recording people, morphing into this live show thing, kind of watching it from the outside, and all of a sudden you're thrust into it. As the employee who's been with the company the longest, Bill, before we let you guys go, any thoughts, any feelings overall, what you feel the live show era brought to AMI outside of us presenting articles and so on?
Well, it
Do you want
certainly
to go first, Bill, or should I? Yeah.
No, Billy. Billy.
It gave me the opportunity to be on TV, and it gave me the opportunity to expand my comfort zone and actually get more use out of the computer, do more research. And I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to be on the show as long as I am.
I know when I brought this up to have you guys on, each one of you was very excited to be able to come back, talk, and we really appreciate that because of what the show did and watching growth. Margrett, we watched you grow into someone who was never an on-air person whatsoever to doing this. What did you take away from this experience?
Well, as I said from the beginning, if it wasn't for the show, I wouldn't have had a lot of the experiences that I've had. I wouldn't have become, more familiar with technology. But I think what I really liked, especially when we did these segments from our homes, is I always felt a family kind of a feeling, with the team and then with my own family. And what I really liked is there were times when I could bring the two families together, like when my cousin helped me on the very first day of my show, or when we did the alumni special, Kelly, when you were up there. I think it was for the 125th anniversary of W. Ross, and my brother and sister came on the show, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And I just think it's the teamwork. I think it's just the knowledge, the education, and the growth. Yeah.
Yeah, and you will always know that they have your back, and that's honestly, it felt like more of a family than a team, which I love that. I love that. Thank you, Margrett.
Both of you, thank you both for making the time to come on here today. It's very special. The show itself, very special, and your roles in it, incredibly special. Margrett, Bill, thank you. As we can only say, we miss you guys dearly. The show misses you, and we're so glad that you could join us to wrap up the series. Margrett Weldon, Bill Shackleton joining us here on the program. Guys, take care and the best to you.
Thanks a lot.
Margrett Weldon, Bill Shackleton joining us. And folks, that's it for us for today's show. From brown sugar obsessions to mushroom mains, we're dishing out the top food trends heating up across Canada tomorrow with culinary expert Mary Mammoliti. Nazreen and I will talk to you then. Fedora's off to you.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly & Company. Follow us on all social media. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.